Well, g'day guys. Welcome to the blog and welcome to Simpsons Gap. Interesting place. This is a gap within the ranges here, or the Western Macdonald Ranges, which is probably my favourite part of the country out here, the Western Macs. They have poetry to their soul. Interesting place also that this is where my brother-in-law got married to his now wife. And yeah, it's a great place. But moving on, the thought for this week is about honesty. And lots of us talk about being honest, but what I've discovered about honesty is that it's almost something that you breed in your life. Like, some people think that it's okay to tell a lie if it's not going to hurt anyone, or you're not going to make anyone feel bad, because we don't want to make people feel bad. But sometimes those lies actually catch up to us. Interestingly enough, I was talking to a young person just recently about this, and they wanted to know, like, if I tell the truth, I might hurt the person. But if I don't tell the truth, in the short term, that person won't get hurt. But in reality is that actually in the long term, that one little lie that wouldn't hurt them in the short term, in the long term, can turn into a massive hurt. And we did a thing called Play the Movie, where we said, okay, what is the consequence of this short-term not hurt going to mean? And sometimes we have to do that in life. I know when my wife's getting ready to go out, sometimes she asks me, how do I look? And this is always a touchy subject for a bloke, because what do you say? The question that comes to mind is, does my bum look big in this? And a friend of mine always says, well, I was chatting this out with a friend of mine just the other day, and I said, what do you say in that situation? And their response was, you always tell the truth. You always say, yes, your bum looks big. Well, it depends if it does or it doesn't. Just be honest. And yes, because that way that person then knows, and they know that they perhaps don't look so good. And then I was thinking about that, and I thought that actually you don't have to be brutally honest. There's this honesty level where you can actually still be loving, and we know in the Bible that the highest theology is love, and we know that God came to the world to show his love, and so he was truthful and honest, but also loving at the same time. And I think that we can take a word from that. So whenever my wife says, do I look good in this, I always say, why is she asking this? Well, she perhaps wants some of my approval, and she wants to know that she needs to know that I love her. So instead of just saying, yes, your bum looks big in this, I say, well, I'm not sure that outfit works for your body shape, but I really do love you, and I think you're fantastic, and I think you're really beautiful. And I try to build her up at the same time. I don't know if that works. You'll have to ask Nick as to whether that actually works or doesn't work, and whether I do that regularly enough. But that's a good point. Are we regularly being honest? Because I think sometimes we can be habitual liars, and we can be habitually honest. And it's our choice whether we go down the road of truth or the road of lying. And lies just seem to build up in our life. We start going, oh, well, I don't want to hurt this person, so we tell a lie. But then we don't want to get into trouble, so we sort of tell some lies. And then we don't want the consequences to affect us of our actions, so we don't own up to things that we've done. And it just becomes this web that entangles us and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it gets hard to break it. But once you start being honest, all of a sudden, honesty just starts coming out of us. And we just live our lives honestly. You know, like, I've met people who, a little while ago, I dinged a car with my door, and it damaged it quite significantly, and I wrote a note and put it on the windshield. And they never got back to me, so if you're out there watching this blog, just, feel free to call me up and get your pounds back. But they didn't bother. I don't know whether it blew off the windshield or something like that, but I didn't get any consequences for that. Another time, I was riding my bike and I slammed up the back of a BMW. We were just about to emigrate to the United Kingdom. We needed all the money we could get our hands on, and I damaged significantly the back of this car, and I remember stopping and waiting for the owner to come and explaining what had happened. And it cost me $2,000, and it was really tough, but at the end of the day we paid our fine, and the consequences for putting my head down and riding hard on a hot day happened. But I felt really good about it, and I think that we've just got to try and live as honestly and walk as humbly as we can in the land and live in honesty. So that's my thought for this week. How honest are you? I'm not saying be brutally honest, where we walk roughshod over people and say the truth is this, and without love. And I'm not saying tell lies to protect people, but are we walking that balance, that line down the middle? And are we loving the people around us? And because I think being honest with the people around us is really important. And my final thought for the blog this week is, are you being honest with yourself? And now I mentioned this before, I think in an earlier blog, like we can lie to ourselves and we can tell ourselves all sorts of things. And one of the ways we do that is that, I bumped the car next to me with the door. And it's not that big a damage. It's not that bad. They won't have to pay that much to get that fixed. And so you're lying to yourself. You're saying it's not your responsibility. Maybe, I know last time I talked about this, I was talking about how we often get a picture of how people think about us, and we think we're stupid, or we think we're useless, or we think we're worthless. And people project that into our lives, and then we start believing that lie, and we lie to ourselves all the time, and we tell ourselves we're not worthy, we're not worthwhile. And this leads to depression in some cases, and low self-esteem, and it's hurtful and hard. But we need to be honest with ourselves. And the honest picture is that God loves us so much. And the honest picture is that He came to save us. And He lives with us and helps us through these hard times. So, thought for this week. Are you being honest with yourself? And are you being honest with each other? And are you being honest with God? God's there. He's listening to you. He wants to hear what you have to say. And some people are trying to, hide. I heard a preacher say once, I don't want to tell God that because, then He'll know I've sinned. And it's like, well, He already knows. And if you can't be honest with God, especially with our feelings, I think King David was really good at this in the Psalms. He poured out his heart and he wrote poetry. And he said, Lord, I just want you to take those people and smite them, kill them because they're hurting me. And it was his way of dealing with that and saying, actually, I need to hand this to you. And are we doing that? So those are my 3 thoughts for this week. Are you honest with others? Are you honest with yourself? And are you honest with God? Because if you can't be honest with God, who can you be honest with? All right, guys, have a great week. And I'll see you next time on the interweb. Bye.